The fundamental disconnect in how men and women often experience and express deep affection lies at the heart of this paradox. From a male perspective, love is frequently a linear journey toward connection. When a man feels his emotions intensify, his instincts are direct and action-oriented. He seeks to close the distance, to claim the object of his affection, and to provide stability and protection. His logic is straightforward. If you care for someone, you show them, you tell them, and you consistently reinforce your presence. This is how he measures both his own commitment and the commitment of his partner. Attention and availability are the currencies of genuine interest in his emotional language. However, applying this same logical framework to understand a woman's behavior during intense, emotional experiences leads to confusion and misinterpretation. For her, the surge of powerful, genuine love is not a simple path forward, but a complex whirlwind of conflicting sensations. It's euphoria intertwined with vulnerability, passion mixed with a profound fear of the immense power she has willingly handed over. This internal chaos is the catalyst for her puzzling actions. The very depth of her feeling triggers a primal alarm of fear of losing herself, being completely exposed, or of facing a pain that would be unbearable if that love were ever withdrawn. Consequently, a retreat is not a reflection of her heart closing down, but rather of it opening too much, too fast. She pulls away precisely because she feels too much, not too little. She is attempting to manage an overwhelming emotional tempest from within. It's a desperate attempt to regain a sense of equilibrium and self-preservation in the face of feelings that threaten to consume her. Therefore, what a man might logically interpret as rejection or disinterest is, in truth, a self-protective response to the terrifying and beautiful risk of truly loving someone. She isn't operating on a logical wavelength at all in these moments. She's navigating by the tumultuous stars of deep emotion, and her behavior is a direct response to that internal storm. This retreat is a deeply instinctual process, a defense mechanism activated by the perceived threat of vulnerability. When a woman realizes the magnitude of her feelings, it is often accompanied by a startling revelation. She has voluntarily given another person an unprecedented level of power over her emotional state. This power is the ability to bring immense joy, but also, and perhaps more terrifyingly, the capacity to inflict profound hurt. This love is no longer a simple emotion. It feels like a high-stakes gamble where the potential loss is her own peace of mind and emotional stability. This realization can be paralyzing. It's triggering a primal kind of panic, a fight-flight response within the heart, in the absence of a literal escape. She creates an emotional one. The act of ignoring, of creating distance, becomes her psychological sanctuary. It is her way of building a temporary barricade against the overwhelming intensity of it all. By stepping back, she is not trying to hurt you. She is trying to save herself from the dizzying feeling of freefall that deep attachment can evoke. Each unreturned text or moment of coldness is a brick in this wall, a conscious effort to prove to herself that she remains an independent individual, capable of functioning without your validation or presence. She is whispering a mantra to herself: I am still in control. I do not need him to feel complete. This is why the behavior intensifies in direct proportion to the depth of her feeling. The more powerful the love, the more formidable the defense must be. It is a desperate attempt to lower the emotional temperature, to slow the dizzying pace at which things are moving internally. She needs space and silence not to push you away, but to process the sheer volume of what she feels, to simply catch her breath. The silence is a strategic pause, a method of self-regulation. It is the emotional equivalent of creating a firebreak to contain a blaze that burns so brightly she fears it might consume everything. The coldness is not an absence of warmth, but the shadow cast by a fire that is simply too large for her to stand next to without shielding herself. This strategic retreat is not merely an internal process. It is also an unconscious yet critical examination of your character. The vacuum created by her silence is a test chamber for your emotional fortitude. She withdraws to observe not just her own reactions, but more importantly yours. In this void, every action you take is amplified, and every non-action speaks volumes. This is the moment of truth that separates a man of strength from one governed by his insecurities. The most common and disastrous reaction is to immediately chase the connection, to frantically fill the silence with questions, texts, and demands. For clarification, its pursuit born of anxiety and a need for reassurance is instantly interpreted as weakness. It reveals a dependency on her for your own emotional stability, confirming her deepest fear that you lack the inner foundation to handle the complexities of her emotions. You become not the calm port in her storm, but another needier storm she must navigate, thereby reinforcing the very sense of overwhelm she sought to escape. The man who understands the unspoken rules of this dynamic does the counterintuitive. He leans back. He recognizes the silence, not as a punishment to be endured, but as a process to be respected. His response, or lack thereof, is a powerful communication in itself. By remaining calm, confident, and unwavering in his own purpose, he demonstrates a crucial strength. He is unshakable. He gives her the space she instinctively needs without resentment or panic, proving that his sense of self is not contingent on her constant validation. This steadfastness does not push her further away. On the contrary, it makes her feel safe. It signals that you are emotionally solid and capable of handling her depths without being destabilized yourself. You pass the test by refusing to play the game on her terms, instead holding firm to your own. Your non-reaction to her chaos becomes the most attractive and reassuring reaction possible. It shows that you cannot be manipulated by emotional pressure and that you respect both her process and your own peace enough to let it unfold naturally. This is what ultimately earns her trust and, paradoxically, draws her back. To mistake her external silence for internal indifference is the gravest error of interpretation. The energy required to consciously ignore someone you have strong feelings for is immense. It is an active, not a passive state. This effort itself is the clearest proof of your significance. While her outward actions project an image of cool detachment, her inner world is often in a state of intense turmoil and preoccupation. This is why true disinterest looks entirely different. It is characterized by a peaceful, effortless absence of thought or energy directed your way. There are no games, no tests, and no calculated silence, because there is no emotional stake in the outcome. A woman who is truly unmoved will not devote the mental effort to ignore you. She will simply be indifferent, which manifests as a natural, unforced absence of communication, without any underlying tension. Therefore, her strategic silence is not evidence of fading feelings, but rather a signal that she is already deeply invested and emotionally trapped. She is fighting a war with her own heart, and the battlefield is the silence she creates. The void she manufactures to gain control ultimately becomes a prison of her own making as the isolation amplifies. Her own anxiety and longing, the questions she hoped you would ask by pulling away, begin to echo in her own mind. Why hasn't he chased me? Has he moved on? The silence ceases to be a shield she controls and becomes a mirror reflecting her own inescapable investment back at her, proving that her feelings are far too powerful to be managed through avoidance. The period of silence, therefore, is not the conclusion, but a critical, transformative incubation phase where attraction either solidifies or evaporates. Your response dictates the outcome. By refusing to chase, you do not neglect the connection. You fundamentally alter its power dynamic. You allow natural consequences and the weight of her own emotions to work in your favor. As you remain steadfast and focused on your own purpose, her initial strategy of control begins to backfire spectacularly. The fear she initially felt about losing herself in the relationship is gradually replaced by a more potent and immediate fear, the fear of actually losing you. This shift is the turning point. Her eventual return is not a casual event but an inevitable surrender to a truth she could no longer suppress or outlast. The silence becomes unbearable for her first, precisely because her feelings were always the engine of the situation. When she breaks, she does so with a built-up intensity and clarity that would not have existed without the period of absence. Her comeback is a silent admission of your strength and a testament to the depth of her own investment. The man who waited patiently, without resentment or neediness, wins far more than just her resumed attention. He wins her profound respect and a solidified trust in his emotional strength. He has proven he can hold space for her complexities without being shattered